Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of North Kawartha Council on November 18th. Welcome to the folks that are joining us online, because we don't have anybody joining us today in the gallery here, but just a reminder that we do record our meetings and we upload them to our YouTube channel. So just any comments, any opinions that are expressed will be recorded and available for the public to hear. And before we begin, council would like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, in particular, our neighbors from Kawartha Anishinaabe and Curve Lake First Nation. We recognize and honor the original people of this place we call North Kawartha. As duly elected representatives, we follow this Indigenous practice of acknowledgement to foster respectful deliberations, thoughtful collaboration, and wise decision-making in our service to this community. Okay, and disclosure of pecuniary interests. Does any member have any interest with any of the matters before us today? Seeing none, I will move on. Oh, I hear the pops coming. Adoption of the agenda. There's no additions or anything, is there, Connie? I don't believe so.
No additions.
All right, can I move her to adopt the agenda? Please move by Ruth Ann, seconded by Colin, all in favor. That agenda has been adopted. We don't have any statutory public meetings this morning, but we do have a deputation. We have a presentation from Kawartha Land Trust regarding the Ontario Invasive Phragmites Action Program, and Tom Unruh is joining us here today. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Tom. Good morning and welcome, and please go ahead. You got to unmute.
There we go.
There, perfect.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I know some of you would have heard about the Phragmites Action Program on an October 15th delegation to Council, Peterborough County Council. And so I'm going to try not to repeat myself too much while still giving a bit of an overview of the program. But I'm hoping today to tell you a little bit about what we've learned about Phragmites in North Kawartha in particular, and how we might work together this year to submit a joint application for funding to the Ontario Phragmites Action Program, such that we can control some Phragmites in North Kawartha in 2026. Are you able to see my screen, or do I need to share it?
You need to share it, I believe.
Okay.
Kelly, can you make sure he can do that?
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm sending you a share request there.
Perfect.
And you know what? I'm going to, sorry, I thought you'd be sharing it. So I just need to open.
Or he can, or we can, if that's easier, whatever you prefer.
Do you have it up right there?
Yes, I can.
Kelly can get it up. I know you got it. You're ahead of the game. Oh, no, I know it's in our package, but we're sharing on the screen for everybody. There we go. Kelly has started.
There you go. You beat me to it, Kelly. Thank you.
Wonderful.
So yeah, and regrets from Terry Reese, Ontario Phragmites Action Program, Central Ontario Coordinator. I was hoping we could do these things together, but he's a busy guy, and I thought I could take over just the introduction about the program from him. So thanks very much. Next slide. And it's just a reminder to everyone, just so that we don't sort of get into this conversation and realize that I've left folks behind and they don't know what Phragmites is at all. I think most people are aware, but it is an invasive plant that's been called Canada's worst invasive, and it has all sorts of terrible impacts. And this is actually one of the reasons I like it, to be honest, is because it does have negative impacts in different areas, not just in ecology. And so it's an opportunity for folks to get together and work on something together that has addresses multiple needs. So you got a picture here of it kind of popping in on a roadside. And there are other effects to infrastructure like stormwater management and sewage lagoons and recreational infrastructure. So yeah, there are these sort of economic impacts from Phragmites. Next slide, please. As well as sort of the social impacts. So I know folks who know about this have probably seen it creeping into sort of waterfront areas, and you go to other jurisdictions, especially north or southwestern Ontario, And there are folks who don't have a cottage view of their waterfront anymore. You know, this plant has just like basically created a wall in front of their cottage. And after a big control program that happened down there, I've spoken to a few folks and they said, oh my God, I've got my cottage back now. Yeah, it's pretty, it can be very detrimental, especially in parts of the province or the country where it's much more further along. Next slide. And of course, where Kawartha Land Trust comes at this. So we're a conservation charity. So what we sort of think about is what are the ecological impacts or the environmental impacts of this. And I've heard one of the leading experts in the province say that having a wetland covered in Phragmites is essentially the same as habitat loss. It's like as if the habitat is just kind of gone. You put it under a parking lot or something like that. That's, I think, she's meaning from a very ecological perspective. So it's function for habitat, for turtles, for birds, for insects, and all of those webs of life. And so, yeah, it can be very devastating for ecology. Next slide. And fortunately, the province has seen to doing something about this. And so what I'm talking to you about today is part of the Ontario Phragmites Action Program, which is $11 million contribution from the province of Ontario over 3 years to create, and I should have highlighted this here, a coordinated approach to Phragmites across Ontario, because that's really what I'm in charge of doing for the Kawarthas, or have taken on the task of doing for the Kawarthas. So next slide. So one of the pieces of wisdom that they had in distributing this program is to move from sort of random acts of stewardship, so random acts of controlling Phragmites, to lessen its impact. They're suggesting that people sort of take this coordinated approach and form what's called Phragmites management areas, or sort of working groups where all the stakeholders that could have an impact on Phragmites could come together and try to work together to avoid duplication and make sure they're taking a comprehensive approach to Phragmites. Next slide. And so I am leading the charge of this Phragmites management working group. And in our first 2 meetings that we just started this year in 2025, we had 15 land managers at the 2 meetings that we've had. And you know, I'm really focused on working specifically and first with land managers in the conservation world, so conservation authorities and charitable conservation organizations, as well as sort of infrastructure land managers like roads, sewage, and those kinds of things. These people do also control a lot of the landscape, or they have an impact on a lot of the landscape. And so working with these folks is important to starting a sort of coordinated approach to Phragmites management. You know, if I sort of went through the Rolodex and went through all of the people that would need to be involved in order to take a really coordinated response, and I think it would require certainly more than 30 organizations. So I'm realizing that this is going to be sort of a phased approach over time as hopefully the Ontario Phragmites Action Program rolls out for a second round. We can bring other people like cottagers associations and naturalist groups and volunteer groups into this fold and take this sort of approach. So our scope is Peterborough County and City of Kawartha Lakes. So big enough to be big, small enough to be manageable, I think. And as I said, it's convened by Kawartha Land Trust under what we're calling the Kawartha Climate and Conservation Partnership, which is really just about taking a regional approach to conservation issues and trying to support capacity building to help everybody address these challenges together. Next slide. The ultimate goal of the working group is to access funding to increase control. We're well past the point where we need to talk about this, especially among land managers. They're very aware of it. And there is funding available. And so I hope that we can identify some actions that we can do together, but also separate on our own areas of jurisdiction, and access some funding for 2026 to do this work. Some folks would be starting control. Some folks are multiple years into doing Phragmites control. The grant application is due in January with a sort of expression of interest due at the end of the month. I'll talk a bit more about that later. But that's where the next piece of funding that I think we can access to start doing this Phragmites control. Of course, we also want to share resources and data and knowledge to avoid duplication. We've seen a lot of great from this great coming from our first two working group meetings already around this, that people are having that knowledge exchange, and it's really helpful. And ultimately, we want to address capacity gaps in this space to make sure we can do more. Long story short, we want to make it easy to do something about Phragmites and do it together. Next slide. Can you go to the next one too? I'm realizing I'm a bit behind, so I just don't want to. Again, sort of long story short, next year we're going to be looking to control priority roadside patches that we've identified through work this year that I'll tell you about. And that we want to control known populations that are on more like conservation land and public land. And we want to continue to fill out the picture of what Phragmites is where on the landscape, and importantly, where it is not. So we're going to also do sort of more presence and absence surveys on public and conservation land. And again, the reason I'm here today is because I think there's an easy opportunity for you folks to join in on this work and get some good value for money if you're already thinking about controlling Phragmites in North Kawartha. Next slide. So as I said, there's those three sort of areas of action for work. The first one is roadsides, and I'll tell you, next slide, a little bit about where we're at and what we know in North Kawartha. So this year we will have done a fairly comprehensive review or inventory of all roadside Phragmites populations in the area of undertaking. We're getting a little close to the end of the year. We might not actually fill in all these purples, but the purple is the area that we were still needing to go in mid-October. And so my person's out there driving around, or putting on GPS where all the Phragmites is and writing down how big the patch is and whether it's in water. So we have a really good snapshot of what we have out there. Next slide. And this is the first time this has been done in the region, as far as I'm aware. It's a really, really good picture of where to prioritize control so we can hone in on action. So in North Kawartha, here's just a little screenshot from our mapping. It doesn't really show up very well, but you've got your patches there that are highlighted in yellow. And we see that there's actually only about 15 locations along roadsides, about 19,000 meters squared. And working with the county roads operations manager and estimating based on her previous experience using doing Phragmites control, to control all of those populations would be about $5,500. So really actually not all that much given the scope of the problem that could be if we do nothing. Next slide. So that's roads. Then the other actions that we can take together around parks and public lands. So next slide. And there's two elements here. One is if your Parks Department folks or anybody in the township government is aware of any populations that we want to put in the grant to get action taken on next year, then we can do that. There's some other people from Parks Departments that say, oh yeah, like I know that patch behind the boat launch and we've been meaning to deal with it for years. Maybe this is an opportunity. We'll put that patch in your grant and then hopefully we can get funding for it next year. So small action for next year is possible if you have a known population. And I just put Chandos Lake Beach in here because I seem to recall there being some on the backside, but maybe I'm just making that up. I was paying attention to my kids, not the Phragmites when I was there last. And then the second part of that is we'll be hiring a central person to monitor for presence absence of Phragmites on public land across the service area. So we're hiring this person and then we're just making that person's time available to the different organizations that are part of the region. And so they would just hear from your Parks Department what public lands you have and go to those lands and then do an inventory and report back to you. So that's a service we're hoping to be able to provide through this grant so we can get this very good comprehensive review. Next slide. So this, of course, costs somebody money, and this is where I'm hoping that if North Kawartha has an interest in controlling Phragmites in their region, they'll see this as a good opportunity to act and contribute. So the grant that I mentioned is up to $50,000 and is a one-to-one matching. And so I'm hoping that we can put some work to control and monitor Phragmites in the grant for next year in North Kawartha, and that North Kawartha would be able to contribute the 50% match to undertake that work. And so, I've estimated the number of roadside populations and approximately how much that would cost. The second line, if we have is describing if we have a population we know that's near a boat launch, maybe we could undertake that, an approximate budget for that. And then that third line is a survey of North Kawartha parks and trails as directed by staff. So that's, again, the work that we'll be undertaking that doesn't require contribution from us, or from North Kawartha, rather. So next slide. Again, sort of long story short, great opportunity to submit jointly for funding for this Ontario Phragmites action program to control roadside and public land populations and monitor North Kawartha owned public land. And the contribution would probably be up to $5,000 to support this work on your roadways and lands. So they're giving us this great grace period where by the end of the month, we can tell them like, oh, we think we have this many people notionally interested. And then they'll review our application and tell us whether or not there's that much funding available. But then they will need final confirmation from the organizations that are participating, so hopefully North Kawartha, by the end of January. So I think that's a great little grace period where we can see which way the wind's blowing, but then lock it in by January. So that's it for me. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. I'm gonna turn it over to council and staff. If questions or comments, Jim, you can start us off.
Morning, morning, Tom. We have an awful lot of parkland here, 39,000 hectares, as a matter of fact. Are you working with the park as well as, I know it's public land, but the park always has different rules and regulations.
I've called Emily Provincial Park, but I haven't yet tackled the beast of Kawartha Highlands. Signature site. You're right. I think it'll be large. Maybe we start with the road access points and the parking lots with them.
Yeah,
that's a good point, though.
okay. You good?
Yeah, that's the only thing I was wondering about. There's so much of our property that's it is a park.
I know it's Crown lands. Colin.
Yeah, first, I love the presentation and I certainly appreciate that it was sort of budget neutral for us as well. I can already think of 2 locations in the township, including along the municipal portion of Jack Lake Road, which would be a heavily traveled area that we have Phragmites. And I realize my interests may be unique with this crossover, but I do see some opportunity to leverage runners and cyclists who are moving a little bit slower along the sides of the roads and are able to actually identify these, especially before they become a larger issue.
Yep.
I'm a cyclist as well, and I've often thought of that too. So maybe you and I should volunteer to be on a Phragmites cycling group. That's actually a good idea.
It's a good point. Go ahead.
As a bit of an aside, one of the areas that needs to be monitored would be the rail trail from Peterborough going east and west. So the Hastings Rail Trail and the Omimi Kawartha Rail Trail. And so we will be having a cycling sort of monitoring program for that next year as part of our monitoring.
Okay, well, I have a question that kind of dovetails nicely with that because I ride my bike from where I am on Eels Lake up to Silent Lake Provincial Park. So beyond, but up Highway 28, and there are definitely patches of Phragmites along to Highway 28. So I was asking, I mean, I know we're looking sort of at county roads and township roads, but have you connected with the MTO at all? Because that's a main corridor that's kind of funneling a lot of that Phragmites up our way, right? So do you have any plans for that?
Yeah. So I haven't contacted them yet, but we do have the populations identified along Highway 28. And yeah, every time I go up to Bancroft, I drive by that one and I think, oh, someday we got to do that.
Yep.
So yeah, I would love to include that one. I'm juggling the people. There's so many to get in touch with.
Well, just so you know, I created just a little bit of a side, but I created a mayor's coalition on Highway 28 dealing with the safety issues and concerns. And we're hopefully having a meeting sometime in the near future. They've done a complete safety review of the highway, but one of the things I was thinking, one of the issues has been even maintenance of the roadside, the road allowances, cleaning the ditches, cleaning the trees. And you identified in your presentation too about visibility issues when it comes to things like Phragmites. So I'll certainly raise that when we have our meeting and hopefully maybe get a connection for you as we move forward on that. So, but that's a good thing. Jim O'Shea.
Yes, have you made connections with the county roads department? Because up here, I would say a very significant part of the Phragmites population is on the county roads. 620, for instance, when I first came up here, there was nothing of that nature. But about 10 years ago, I spotted a few heads of Phragmites. Now I can hardly see anything else. So it is spreading very quickly. And in my first term, when we first spotted Phragmites, we went to the county from here and requested that they do something about it. And there was nothing done. It was left to grow. And now it's taken over much of the community.
It's hard to see that happen over time, isn't it? You know, especially when you know it's a relatively manageable issue and then nothing gets done and it just gets worse and worse. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about this because we are working with the county operations. I think it's coordinator Jenna Humphrey, and she manages the roadside spraying for noxious weeds, and so has really, you know, down to sort of a really clean process of managing the contractors on both township and county roads for the other noxious weeds management. So I understand that she sort of does it on behalf of the townships, and it feels to me that there's a really good opportunity for replicating that process here. I still haven't confirmed that with her manager, but that's been our conversation to date, is that the county roads department, enabled through this grant, would be able to sort of support the logistics for both township and county roads. And I think that would be helpful, save everybody a little bit of trouble and get some economies of scale from the contractor rather than every township hiring their own person to do the work.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe you've had a couple of meetings. I think our public works supervisor, Jason, he attended one of your meetings about this as well, right? Because I think you guys have done a good job, certainly when it comes to identifying it on the county roads, but I can think of a number of township roads just in my own travels where I've seen it that may not, you know, it may not be like something that's well known. So to make sure that we can get every possible patch that we know of, right? So, and we maybe have some time between, if we're successful between now and I assume next summer or whenever we're gonna do it, right? To make sure that those are all clearly identified, right? Anybody else? Questions, comments? Jim?
No, I think everybody's in agreement that this is a program that we have to do, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna mention it because it's your idea. I think you should put your idea forward.
Well, it's not my idea, but it is, we do have a policy, and I did share it with you, Tom, about municipal grant program for environmental initiatives. The clerk did share it with some extra information that we've done in the past. Phragmites is specifically identified in there. KLT definitely is an association within our community, has property within our community, does work to support environmental initiatives in North Kawartha. So I would think a motion that we provide that support. We have, it's 50% up to a maximum of $10,000. You're looking for 5,000, whatever it may be, we can flesh out those numbers, but I think that a motion that we support your funding request through that municipal grant program. The amount to be determined.
Yeah.
You want to make that motion, Ruth Ann?
For sure. Yeah, I was thinking that.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, and Jim, you want to second it? Okay. Is there any questions or comments on that at all? All right, then all in favor of the motion? That is approved unanimously. Excellent. Thanks, Tom. So I guess next steps, you're going to take that information away and then you'll come back to us once you know everybody else that's in, and you'll have sort of more exact numbers as to funding that you require.
Yep, that's exactly right. And knowing that you have that program, which I applaud you for doing so, by the way, is really great. You know, that'll definitely be helpful. I just wanted to ask if this was an emotion that was approved in this from this meeting, do I get that in writing somewhere? Just because I think that will be supportive of my grant application.
Absolutely, Connie, you can provide that?
I can, yes.
Okay, yeah, after the meeting, she can provide that to you for sure.
Thanks very much.
Okay, all right, if there's nothing else, can I have a motion then to receive Tom's presentation? Moved by Jim O'Shea, seconded by Ruth Ann. All those in favor? That has been received. Thanks very much, Tom.
Nice to see you, Tom.
Have a
Good
great
luck.
day.
All right, thanks. Okie dokie, so now we're gonna go on Peterborough County report. Do I have a report? We don't have our meetings tomorrow. I don't have reports.
I don't have a report.
Or maybe from the last one, we did have our budget discussion and I did tell you about that. It's currently at about 5.5%, not approved yet. There's an amended, it's an agenda for tomorrow and they're bringing the budget back, because we have a lot of joint services with, and things with Peterborough City. We just wanted to wait to make sure those things were kind of finalized in terms of their budget, request numbers. So, and there's a bunch of other stuff coming tomorrow anyway, but we'll talk about that at the next meeting. So anyway, that's my report. Anybody want to receive it? Pretty basic. Moved by Ruth Ann to receive, seconded by Colin, all in favor. That's the county report. Crowe Valley Conservation Authority, we got a lot to talk about, Colin.
Yeah, there's some significant changes happening at the provincial level.
Yeah.
And at this point, we do know that it's gonna be condensed down into the 7 and have the sort of.
Is that a final number? Like they're firm on that number?
As best as we can tell, more information is coming through, but unfortunately, a lot of the information that we're finding out through the media instead of through direct communications. So there are webinars that are available and things that will be attended to make sure that sort of Crowe Valley has all the information necessary to operate successfully for the next 8-9 months. But that certainly does complicate hiring a general manager when the province makes it so that position isn't going to be existing. But thankfully, the committee did leave a diverse range of options for board consideration, so we're not going to be stuck. And again, I'll be able to update you more about the provincial amalgamation soon, but again, it's too early to really comment, especially publicly on it. So the highlights of our meeting that'll be coming beyond conversation about that would be, we're having a delegation about flood levels. So there's concerns similar to what CLPOA had on Candos, but in another part of the township. And I can also report that starting, it will be a 2.03% increase to municipal levies on the Crowe Valley budget. And there's opportunity for that to go up or down. But it's gonna be a pretty minimal increase, as the things are essentially in a holding pattern until we have more information, and also it's difficult to invest knowing that the organization will not exist as is within the next year.
Yeah, there's a session this afternoon at 2 p.m. You've registered for that, right? Yeah. Yeah, there's the letter that's on our consent agenda. May as well speak to it now, but it gives, you have to register. There's an email there, ca.office@ontario.ca, if you want to join that meeting, just for folks' interest. But one of the things I was thinking about too was, because I'm looking at it, because we went through the whole thing with the source water protection a few years ago and all of that. And so I wrote down the numbers, or did I? We have 38 source protection areas, but 36 conservation authorities currently. But we have 19 source protection regions. Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, you're gonna, shrink these all down, so they're gonna be less than the regions that we've got. Like, are they making changes to the, well, I'm asking you, but maybe that's something you can ask. Right?
As best as I can tell from looking at it, there's no like direct way to figure out how they came up with 7. I'm sure there was good logic and practice applied, but it's not like it was simply amalgamate some of the regions,
Yeah.
The source protection areas.
Right.
So I'm not.
All right, well, we'll wait for your next report. Anybody else? I have a conflict. I would totally have gone to that meeting, but I have another meeting at 2 o'clock today, but hopefully lots of folks go and learn more about it, because it's going to be making for interesting times. Anyway, motion then to receive that report, moved by Jim Whalen, seconded by Ruth Ann, all in favor. The Crowe Valley report has been received. Adoption of the minutes of the previous meetings of council. We had capital forecast meeting and the regular meeting on November 4th. Can I have a motion to adopt those minutes, please? Moved by Jim O'Shea, seconded by Ruth Ann, all in favor. Those minutes have been adopted. Anybody want to pull anything out of the consent agenda? I didn't receive any notification to do so. I mean, we did just talk about there is the notice there, like I said, the consultation on the proposed boundaries for the regional consolidation of Ontario's conservation authorities. If there's nobody that wants to pull anything, then motion to receive the consent agenda, please. Moved by Jim O'Shea, or Jim Whalen, seconded by Jim O'Shea, all in favor. That has been received. And staff reports, we have a consent application here, and I thought I saw, we have our planner, Forbes Simon, who has joined us. I know, are you joining us for this, Forbes? Or are you just here to watch this exciting meeting? I don't know, I better check and see. Can you hear me, Forbes? I see his name, I see his little black square on the screen, but I don't know if he's actually there. I'm trying to open up this report right now. It is from Forbes. Forbes, are you there?
I am here, Mayor.
Oh, wonderful. Good morning.
How are
Welcome.
you today?
Good.
Thank you very much, Mayor. If I may, the matter that's before you involves consent applications that were submitted by PME Investments on behalf of the owner of the property. I've reviewed the applications. They're for lands that are known locally as 10394 Highway 28, just north of Apsley. It's actually within the hamlet of Apsley. The property has frontage on 28 as well as McKay Lake Road. There is an existing dwelling on one of the proposed severed lots with an existing driveway on to County Road 28. The intent of the second consent application is to establish a right-of-way over the severed lands, extending the driveway that connects to Highway 28 south to allow for access to the proposed severed lot. The important thing is, Mayor and Council, this has gone through MTO review. It meets with MTO's policies in terms of design, and there is record on file, I believe appended to my report, of MTO's comments on the application. And so additional access onto the highway was a concern. It's been very well addressed by the applicant. The only other element that I believe is important to council at this time is that the northern portion of the property has a commercial zoning on it. And as part of this proposal, we're recommending that commercial zoning be removed. And then there's also an area of wetland in that general location as well. And the application and the consultant have agreed to recognize that as environmental controlled lands or constrained lands, EC, in the zoning. And then the balance of the lands that are currently zone C3 would go into the RU zone. And those are the two conditions that I'm recommending we ask the county to consider in their deliberations on the application. I'm not sure if there's a need for me to get into too much more. My report, I believe, stands on its own. The attachment number 2 shows the severed and the retained lands, as well as the proposed right of way. That's the second application, and that's my report, Mayor, unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Forbes. Anybody, questions or comments on this? Colin?
Yeah, I know that the province is hesitant to put more commercial entrances on Highway 28. If we were to remove the commercial aspect or commercial zoning from this property, would it impact the sort of status of that driveway and entrance?
That's a very good question. Thank you. I don't believe so. The commercial property historically was accessed off McKay Road. There's existing driveway, there's a shed in there. And so I don't believe, at least based on the information I have, that the commercial lands were ever accessed from the highway and were always accessed from the local road. That severed lot will have access both on McKay and on the highway, but the main entrance to the dwelling on the property would be off the highway, and I don't think it would have any impact on it, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, if there's nothing else, there is the recommendation there with the conditions, Ruth Ann.
I would be prepared to move the recommendation.
Okay, all right, with those two conditions, the
With those
cash
two
and
conditions.
land.
Yes,
And then the zoning bylaw amendment, okay?
yes.
And seconded by Jim Whalen. All those in favor? That has been approved for recommending, if we approve the recommendation for approval. Always sounds so awkward, but anyway, thank you very much, Forbes.
You and you have a great day, Council.
Same to you,
Thank you.
thanks, bye-bye. Okay, and we are now on to, and then Gary, I see Gary is on the screen there, I see his name anyway, but North Kawartha Community Center Distribution, you're back after capital forecast and all of that, and we're dealing with it now. Good morning, Gary, go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Council. Excuse me, and I apologize that we didn't make it to 2026 as planned. So the original plan, and as part of our maintenance plan that we do have with our water system, we had planned in 2026 to do an RO reverse osmosis membrane replacement, along with the rebedding of our iron filters, our multimedia filters, and so on. Unfortunately, I'm going to say in the last 2 weeks, production of the RO system drastically declined. It had a very steep decline in the last couple of weeks. It did not affect the quality of the water. Let's make that clear. The quality of water was still perfect, but the amount of water it was producing fell off very quickly, and as a result, we had to have an emergency visit last week to get the RO membranes replaced and get us back up to speed. I'm happy to report that after a long day Friday and a bit of a busy weekend, we were successful. I'm going to say, without exaggerating, we are producing over 300% more RO water than we were a week ago. So the results were great. We still got a few more things to do. There will be a return visit to rebed the filters, the other filters as I was speaking about. We just didn't have enough time. But the money we spend here will just come off the capital budget that we had planned in 2026. And anything remaining will be to take care of the little things that we had planned for 2026.
Okay, all right, any questions for Gary on that? Jim?
Move the recommendation.
Okay, so we kind of
I
have
think
to.
he's already done.
But 300% increase, I'm liking that. Good return on that dollar. Okay, so moved by Jim, seconded by Ruth Ann. All those in favor? That's approved. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. And again, I apologize we couldn't wait. It became an emergency very quickly.
I totally blame you. You couldn't make those filters last. No worries, no worries. I'm glad you caught it. Glad we got it resolved.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Bye for now.
All right. Okay, and up next is finance. We have our third quarter financial activities and our treasurer has appeared. Surprise!
She's appeared.
She's appeared. She's joining us here in the council chambers to tell us about how we're spending our money.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So the report before you actually is showing, we're forecasting, or, you know, it's a possibility we could be at a deficit of $6,242. It's minimal, but, and it is hard to know. I mean, things could change tomorrow.
Exactly.
You know, something happens that we're not expecting and yeah, it happens. So that's what we're looking at this point. So I guess I'll leave it to you if you have any questions.
Anyone? Questions or comments for Judy? Can't, the computer's very slow today. Trying to open it up. Anybody? Nobody?
Judy, is there anything unusual that you want to point out to us? 'Cause I don't see anything, that's.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. I mean, reports are done, you know, managers are good to report and say, hey, this is happening. As you've just seen the report before me,
Mhm.
you know, to let council be aware of anything major. Yeah, you know, everything's in here. I've noted things where it's unusually high or whatever. And,
Yeah. Still pretty straightforward. Yeah. Okay. The recommendation is that we receive the financial activities report. You wanna make that motion? Okay, Colin will make that. Seconder? Ruth Ann's the seconder. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and so now we have the admin, and Kelly, you're coming up. You vacated your control center there to come and present the 2026 meeting schedule. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, before you, I have the 2026 council meeting schedule. And I just wanted to bring to your attention the meeting in January.
Mhm.
We do have the Roma conference scheduled from January 18th to 20th. So I wasn't sure if council wanted to consider canceling the January 20th meeting and rescheduling it to January 13th if we had quite a few members planning on attending Roma.
Okay.
Because otherwise, if we do have a quorum, we could move ahead
Okay.
and keep that.
Well, I was thinking, because we always canceled the first meeting anyway, right? So why not make it the 13th? And that way, you know, we're kind of in the middle, so we're not too long of a gap, right?
Okay.
Unless anybody has a problem with that, like Dan, you said you're gonna go, I'm not going this year, but so yeah, make it January 13th, that makes sense. All right, and anything else, or just the rest is,
I have
usual.
provided two options. The one is to accept the schedule as provided. The other is if you wanted to include two regular meetings in July and one in August. But if you look at the history of our planning meetings, we have historically gone down to one meeting in July and one in August. And the option one does incorporate that.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, well, council feels, I think stick with option one, because we always have the ability to add a meeting if necessary, right? And we have done that in the past where we've had strictly a planning meeting, right? And because I certainly don't want to jeopardize any timelines for folks' applications, but I mean, we seem to have been able to make it work with the one meeting in each month, so I say we stick with that, but I mean, what does everybody else think?
And it's not the biggest deal in the world to me, but I do prefer having two meetings in July. That's when we have the bulk of the sort of ratepayers in the area and would be available for deputation or attendance. I have a very difficult time sort of limiting our summer availability. I think while I understand summer is busy for everyone, when you're in a municipality that is primarily sort of tourism and seasonal, there's a reasonable expectation that you're going to be working extra hard in the summer. Our retail employees certainly feel that.
Well, I think just because we don't have a second meeting doesn't mean we're not working hard. I am most accessible, I think, in the summer, wherever I go, right? But like I said, I think that, you know, it's something that we've been able to manage the last couple of years is, you know, to pull, to pull the one meeting at each. But like I said, we can always add it. And I think, you know, we've even done it before in August, if we've had, you know, lots of things that have come up, we've added the meeting. So like I said, it's not like it's never gonna happen, right? If we need it, we'll add it. So anyway, there's the two options there. Whoever wants to make a motion. Jim,
I'll throw it up in the air and see who wants to do what, but I'm gonna say option one and just one meeting each month.
okay. All right, is there a seconder for that? Ruth Ann will second it.
Not only that, but we'll be all campaigning.
Oh, will we?
Well,
Are you
we
sure?
may not, but, you know.
Anyway, okay, so, motion for option one, seconded, all those in favor? That is approved. All right. Thank you for that. And the next report, is this you again, Kelly?
It is.
It is, but it's signed Connie, you know.
It is signed. I'm helping her out on this one.
Go ahead, Kelly.
So we have prepared a multi-year accessibility plan ranging from 2026 to 2030. And this is part of the Accessibility for Ontarians and Disabilities Act.
Right.
Our compliance, we are required to prepare this. We did meet with managers and included all the input and provided a plan for you. We're hoping to pass a bylaw at the end of this meeting to adopt the plan.
Okay. All right. Everybody had a chance to look it over. You have any questions or comments on that? It's very thorough. And it's always a work in progress, right? We see the improvements we've made over the years for sure. But there's always more to be done because accessibility is good for everyone, right? Okay, well, there's no questions or comments. Can I have a motion for us to approve this updated plan, please? Moved by Colin, seconded by Jim Whalen. All those in favor? That's approved. Okay, and the next we have is the proposed reschedule of the November 20th budget meeting. And you're gonna take this, Alana?
Sure, I'll take this.
Okay.
Working through the budget this year, we've had quite a few things to consider, including our organizational review, our compensation review, pay equity, as well as we're still waiting on some requisition amounts. So we feel that it's prudent to take a little bit longer to work through the numbers and schedule our first budget meeting for December the 10th, which was originally going to be our second meeting. And then at that point, if we need another meeting, we could schedule it.
Sure. Okay. Everyone?
So moved.
Okay, Jim Whalen makes that motion and seconder, Jim O'Shea, all those in favor? All right, so budget will happen on December 10th. Okay, thank you for that. And we have, Edward, you're up next. We have research into potential designation of select cultural heritage properties. Good morning, Edward.
So as presented in my report, just looking for direction from council to undertake research in the potential designation of the three properties identified in the report. So 280 Old Apsley Road, the Glen Alda Community Center, and at the Haltane Bridge being the components of the former timber and creosote composite bridge structures that were identified in previous studies by the MTO.
Okay.
I mean, we're gonna get those little blue signs on the side of the road.
Historical plaque up next.
That would have to be through the Ontario Heritage Trust,
Oh.
but as part of our signage project that we're working on, as well with identification of those properties in terms of plaques, there has been discussion that with designation, I think in terms of what that signage and plaques look like would tie in with the designation as well, and making sure that any signage or plaque are also appropriate for each of those sites as well. But the larger, formal ones, those are set by the Ontario Heritage Trust. So it is possible if the municipality did move in and protect under Part 5, it might present that opportunity. But yeah, the actual formal larger, but that's the Ontario Heritage Trust that does those plaques.
There is an opportunity, and I've talked about it for a long time, when it comes to that access point at Highway 28. Not just the historical, the last wooden truss bridge, on the King's Highway, but also when it comes to Samuel and Champlain and our First Nations. And I've talked about it, I've mentioned it at our WAD Council meetings about coordinating with them at some point to basically sort of like look to address that, to look at the historical information, but make sure that the narrative is broad and inclusive. Because like I've said before, that Samuel de Champlain would not be the historical figure that he is today if it wasn't for the help and friendship of our First Nations neighbors, right? So, something that could recognize that, I think, is something we should really, really consider. And like I said, I think we have an opportunity to do something like really special. So keep that in mind when you're looking at all of that. So, because I'd like more than just the blue plaque, right? If we do it right. So, but, and this is just exploratory right now, right? So you'll come back to us with.
Yeah, if the information is presented and council wishes to designate under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, then council pass a resolution, and then we will put out a formal notice of intention to designate at that point under the Ontario Heritage Act, and there'd be public notice given for those properties specifically at that point in time.
Okay, Elena?
I think the only concern I would have, and not because there isn't a lot of history at the Highway 28 portion, is MTO's involvement in their corridor, but this is preliminary. That would start the conversation, so.
Absolutely. So, Jim?
Yeah, I can see the Haltane Bridge, but who is Sam Edgar? Why are we gonna make his single grave a historical site?
Get ready for a story.
Through you, Mayor. So currently the property is maintained by the municipality. The crypt there is a rarity in terms of that form of stone construction in this area, specifically of that age. So the physical design and its condition and it being an open crypt is actually pretty rare in Ontario. From that element, as well as tying in with the story.
Okay.
So currently the property is registered on the Ontario Cemeteries Act, but this would broaden that to also give it designation under the Ontario Heritage Protection under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act as well.
They shot a movie there,
Did they really? On that piece of property, they shot a movie.
They did.
Oh, wow.
It was a few years ago, right? So Colin.
Actually, I think Jim raised a really interesting point there and a good one, because like right now in Lakefield, they're having to go through with the renaming of Prince Andrew Island.
Yeah.
Do we know anything about Sam Edgar?
So
I'm not suggesting Sam Edgar was a bad person off the top, but if we're gonna be marking this historical, do we know anything about him?
Well, it's not about him, it's about the crypt.
the crypt, again, I have to do all that, but the crypt, he was interned there for a period of time. So it was basically as a short term until and then the bodies were moved later onto the Union Cemetery.
Okay.
So, and that family was one of the were living in that area originally. So that's and again, and that was, I believe around 1886, if I recall the timeline. So of the construction of that crypt. So that's why it's that was a cemetery location for that, and most of the bodies were then moved afterwards, that were interned there to the Union Cemetery afterwards. So
interesting.
And the Glen Alder Community Center is a rectangular building, but
I get, so yeah, this would be, so again, through your mayor, that yes, that building is over 100 years old, was originally, so most of the historical elements have been modified, so it wouldn't be necessarily preserved, but it does serve as a landmark for the community in terms of for Glenalda. Again, one of those original structures that we do have in the area. But again, be up for staff to bring the recommendation whether it meets the tests of designation under Part 5, but it has been one that has been, the location has been brought up in past by the community, the Historical Society, and that's why I thought I would add it to the list for additional research.
Sorry, Colin.
And I'm sorry for keep butting in, but it's a shorter agenda here. One thing that I think is just a little hidden secret of the Glenalda Community Center. If you go and look on the walls, they have the roster of all the people that fought in World War I and World War II. And if you look at who signed that and actually did the calligraphy for it, it's AJ Caston, who is doing calligraphy before becoming a member of the Group of 7.
I know.
Oh, really?
That's
Yeah.
very
Right.
cool.
That's how he made his money before painting.
That's very
Wow.
cool.
Cool.
Well, that
I
definitely.
can see now why the.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's protect
That's a
that piece of paper.
no-brainer. But anyway.
That's cool. That's cool.
Okay, so there's a recommendation here is that we're just gonna, we authorize Edward to look into this a little further and answer all these questions that we've raised for sure.
I would move the recommendation.
Okay, moved by Ruth Ann, seconded by Jim Whalen, all in favor? That's approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Edward. Okay, and wait a minute. I think we're basically at the end here. We've got to go into close, right? Or no, hang on, where are we here? Pardon me. We have correspondence for action item and listed is from Miss Kayla Dunn, urgent appeal regarding lake access seasonal water drawdown. There's a letter in the response. Elena, do you want to just maybe speak to that with your response, please?
Sure. I actually was contacted by the Trent Severn Waterway, who were copied on the original email from Kayla Dunn. Kayla indicates that she's representing a group of cottagers on Anstruther Lake with concerns with the drawdown. In speaking to Trent Severn Waterway, questions 1, 2, and 4 are definitely within their jurisdiction. And I did reply briefly that, currently the township has no plans to build any roads, permanent roads into those water access properties.
They don't ever allow it, the court will never allow it.
Yeah. I do think though, your letter was made sense. I mean, yes, because it is the Trent Severn Waterway that does have that jurisdiction, but I did want to highlight, and I think we're all aware. I mean, this past summer of what an incredible drought it was, and even I was checking on the Trent Severn Waterway, the water levels site, and I mean, you know what, you guys aren't at the minimum on Anstruther. I mean, you're a little bit, you're above it, the minimum ever recorded. Same thing with Jack is doing, or Little Stony is basically almost about average. I'm on Eels, and Eels is like almost like the worst ever. We just seem to get it no matter what, right? We have such a big drawdown, but I have to say, the rains that we've had in the last week and some of the ponds that I've noticed that are starting to freeze over, there's actually some water back in them, which
Yeah.
I'm like, fingers crossed, we definitely need a winter, with a lot of precipitation to recharge.
Even up early fall, the rocks are almost covered.
Oh my gosh, yes, there has
You know,
been, so.
So it was dry as a bone.
Yeah, but certainly it's something, and I know that the TSW, they work a lot with CUF, which is Coalition for Equitable Water Flow, but in looking at the forecast and the drawdowns and trying to manage a watershed that's 20,000 square kilometers. I wouldn't want that job for anything in the world, right? But it's something certainly that we need to, be aware of and keep on top of, because hopefully that's a one-off last summer, but if it isn't, that's going to have an impact on a lot of things, not just on cottagers, but even us as in our municipality and how we do things, right? So if there's nothing else on that, I guess just a motion to receive, call.
Just a very brief comment, when it comes to the 4 requests, unfortunately, number three with the year-round road being in the park, I think is just a practical impossibility. And one of the challenges of owning property within a provincial park. But 1 and 2, as long as it's not negatively impacting Trent Severn, which they don't suggest that it should, I think are still very supportable. Like their reasonable request to review and revise the drawdown schedule to ensure that they property owners retain reasonable access for as much of the season as possible. But there's certainly nothing wrong with that.
I think, Alana, correct me if I'm wrong, but will we be copied on the TSW's response to that, or can we ensure that we do get a response back from?
I could ask them, I believe I did ask them if they would copy us.
Okay.
But I can reach out to them and ask them.
Perfect. Okay.
I live on the lake and it's definitely, been a hardship for some people. But, it's a reservoir lake. And, regardless of how you slice it, they're gonna keep those electric generators running down on the Johnson River. They're not gonna allow those to go down, so, you're gonna get your water taken, I'm gonna get my water taken, and there was a drought this summer. I mean, it was middle of August to be down to, almost closeout levels,
Yeah. We had, lots of folks pulling their boats and their docks, but one of the things that I just so you may not be aware of too, that over the years, because since the panel for the future of the Trent Severn Waterway was back in 2007, and there was a lot of input, a lot of change, a lot of things happened. And certainly improved communication and collaboration from the TSW or with the TSW and a number of different stakeholders. And I mentioned CUF, and I'm also on the Upper Trent Water Management Partnership group that's sort of spearheaded by Haliburton County, but Trent Lakes and North Kawartha are part of that. Is that they do have this sort of like, it's like the equal percentage drawdowns where they kind of share the pain equally. So it's not, one lake is getting more taken out of it or other. It's like I said, 20,000 square kilometer watershed and trying to manage and balance that, hold the water back as much as possible, but making sure that no one particular lake is suffering more than another. And I know one of the biggest impacts, when it comes to the drought, was just the amount of water they were losing on a daily basis from evaporation alone because of the heat, right? So that's why I'm thinking it would be really good for us to have that response, to make sure that we get a copy of that response back, just so we can, hear it directly from the Trent Severn, and who knows, maybe they are looking at, changing, their practices in terms of how they moderate, because they're gonna have to respond to this if this is the new sort of normal, right? So.
And just to make sure my comments weren't misinterpreted, I'm not being critical in saying that it was mismanaged or they're being intentionally vague about who authorizes this.
Yeah.
It's just a note that we still can improve.
Yeah, do whatever we can, right? And to make sure that everybody is in the, it's just like I said, when they go to pull the logs out, when there's an issue and it's flooding, it's like, you gotta tell us, right? Eels Creek runs through Ashley, right? We need to know if you're pulling a bunch of logs and we've already got people putting sand pigs, right? Like it was earlier in the spring, but anyway. Motion then to receive that, moved by Jim O'Shea, seconded by Ruth Ann, all in favor? That's approved, okay, or that's received. Okay, now I am going to, we're gonna have a recess, but before we do, I wanna declare that, or I need a motion that we're gonna go into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act. As this part of the meeting will be closed because we'll be discussing personal matters about an identifiable individual. Specifically, we're gonna be talking about our compensation and pay equity review and succession planning. So motion to go into close, please. Moved by Jim O'Shea, seconded by Ruth Ann, all in favor. We're going into close, people. Thank you.